Tales of an Unlikely Brotherhood by mentallypapaya. Chapter 3. Who the fuck names a dog Snowdrop? Kacchan, just let me mourn. It had been Jiro's idea. They all wanted to make that clear. A bunch of the class had a free evening at the dorms, so they thought, hey, why not have a movie night all together? It was harmless. Jiro picked out a movie that had come out a year ago or so, that none of them had seen yet. Uraraka and Ida collected the snacks for everybody, and Kaminari joined forces with Momo to collect every blanket or pillow that they knew existed inside the dorm building, temporarily relocating them to the common room to create a single, gigantic couch that spanned across the entirety of the floor in front of the TV. When they were all done, Uraraka, Ida, Jiro, Kaminari, Izuku, Momo, Asui, Hagakure, and Ashido all reconvened to watch the movie. It had been going great. The chosen movie was full of action and fighting and just the right amount of fluff, until about an hour in, when the perfect, adorable little dog companion of the main character brutally died. Again, they all wanted to make it perfectly clear that Jiro picked the movie, so it's her fault. It was a heartbreaking scene, with the poor little dog getting hurt, saving his owner, and dying while the main character held him, sobbing. By the end of the scene, everybody that was watching couldn't help but tear up at least a little. Most of the girls were full-on sobbing, with Kaminari and Izuku joining the group. And it was upon this sad, slightly embarrassing scene that Kirishima and Katsuki walked in on, after arriving back at the dorms from a gym session. It admittedly must have looked quite pathetic. 9 16-year-olds gathered in a shitty-looking blanket fort. Noses running, tears flowing, and the only ones who were looking even remotely composed were Momo and Ida, who had sniffed exactly thrice before refusing to look directly at the TV. Kirishima entered first, taking a single look around the room before landing on the screen and apparently recognizing the movie, snorting in understanding. Then came in Katsuki, who immediately locked eyes with Izuku and dropped his gaze into an unimpressed, half-lidded glare. And Izuku started crying. Even harder. Before anyone could make an attempt to predict what was about to occur, Izuku jumped up from his spot on the blankets and ran towards Katsuki, like a little kid welcoming his father back from the army. There was a brief moment where they thought he was about to attack Katsuki, or at least to bowl him over, but instead he ran into the elder boy's chest and started sobbing into his shirt. "The fuck is happening right now?" Hagakure muttered, bewildered. Katsuki, for some reason not even remotely as confused as everybody else thought he would, and not at all annoyed or disgusted as it felt he lawfully should fucking be, just stayed stock still, allowing his shirt to collect the tears and snot no doubt pouring out of Izuku's buried face. He passed unimpressed eyes over to the TV, which Momo had paused out of pure bafflement, and his eyes were widening in recognition before he threw his head back and let out a long, irritated groan. Kirishima, mouth slightly open, subtly lifted his phone up from his back pocket and tried to take a photo, before turning and widening his eyes at Kaminari pointedly, as if to say, "You seeing this shit, man?" He was definitely seeing it. They all were. "Why the fuck?" Katsuki ground out, lowering his head again to glare at the general group. "Would you let him watch this kind of fucking movie?" Izuku blubbered into his collarbone. It was such a good dog, and now it's dead." "No shit, it's dead." Katsuki didn't give him much sympathy, although to the group's fascination, he did lift one of his arms to pat Izuku on the shoulder consolingly. "It got fucking shot. I told you when it came out not to watch this piece of shit." Izuku sniffed, shaking slightly and still muffled from Katsuki's shirt. "His name was Snowdrop," he wailed, mournfully. Katsuki rolled his eyes. "Fucking American trash-ass name," he grumbled. "Fucking Snowdrop's the creativity of a fucking electric fan." It was worth pointing out that by this point in time, Izuku was the only one crying. This was directly because everybody else in the room was simply too confused and a little bit too enamored by the display going on in front of them to give a single shit about some fake dead dog lying in its own blood on the paused screen of the TV. Uraraka and Asui had gone back to eating popcorn. Kirishima seemed to be filming. Finally, Katsuki pulled Izuku back slightly and proceeded to cup his face in his palms, aligning his head down so their faces were only inches away from being pressed together. "You," Katsuki enunciated clearly, while Izuku sniffed pathetically, "are fucking ridiculous. The dog is not dead. The dog is an actor. And it's doing its job very well. Do you know what that means?" "Mm-hmm." Still teary-eyed, but paying attention, Izuku shook his head, taking Katsuki's hands with him. "It means the second the scene was done, the dog got to have a shit ton of its favorite treats. That dog is nothing but in bliss right now." Katsuki claimed firmly, narrowing his eyes. "Understand?" Hesitantly, Izuku sniffed once more, thinking it over. Slowly he nodded his head, and Katsuki nodded in unison, before releasing his face. "Go to bed," he demanded. To their audience's utter delight and incredulousness, Izuku didn't even put up a fight. He just nodded, collecting his pillow and blanket from the mess on the floor and muttering a small goodnight to the remaining group, exiting the common areas. Katsuki turned and cupped his hands around his mouth just after he left. "You're a fucking pussy, Deku!" he hollered, before turning back to the room of silent spectators. "Next time you fucking Google if the dog lives or not before you start watching. Got it?" And, completely blindsided, the audience had nothing to do but silently nod their heads in agreement. Katsuki jerked his head in satisfaction before turning and leaving himself, once again ruining any sense of normalcy in the class, and then walking off without a care in the world, for the mental mess he was leaving behind for them all to clean up. Utter carelessness, it was. Selfish. The common room remained silent for a good 9 seconds after the Izuku-Katsuki duo left it. Uraraka was the one that finally broke it. "They have been dating!" "That proves nothing," Asui interrupted, and Uraraka quickly held up a finger. "I feel like it proves a lot, actually. You're only seeing this shit because you're looking for it. What are you, a psychiatrist? They fucking love each other, Suyu." "And what are you, a goddamn conspiracy theorist? Dodo's already been through so much. At least let him have his own hobby." "You just refuse to see the truth, don't you?" "You guys," Kirishima cut off the bickering girls, gesturing to the closed door both Izuku and Katsuki had gone through. "That was fucking wild, right? It's not just me." "I swear to God," Kaminari carried on, nodding in agreement, "ever since I actually started paying attention to Bakugo and Mido's interactions, they've been acting like super weird compared to what I expected." "Because they're dating," Uraraka attempted to say, only to get abruptly muffled by Asui's palm over her mouth, shoving her whole weight onto the other girl until the two fell over in the pile of pillows together. "What are you talking about?" Kirishima asked. Ida sighed, lifting his glasses to rub at the bridge of his nose tiredly. Uraraka and Todoroki came up with a theory shortly after Midoriya was seen drawing on Bakugou's arms during the safety assembly a few weeks ago. He explained. They believe the two are in a romantic relationship, and are not simply out yet, thus attempting to hide it. Asui does not believe it, regardless, he pointed out as Kirishima and Kaminari's jaws both dropped. The others in the group somehow managing to become even more invested than before. "It is none of our business, and I recommend that all of us make an effort to ignore them and stay out of it." Kirishima pointed at Uraraka. "You think they're, like, together?" "What other explanation is there?" Uraraka exclaimed, shoving Asui away from her. "The tired hugs, the allowed closeness of the drawing, and now Mido's actively seeking out Bakugo and he's upset. That's for sure love." She folded her arms as Kirishima let this theory sink in, clearly having never thought once about the possibility before just then. "That's so fucked," Kaminari whispered, horrified at the prospect. Asui nodded at him in agreement. "Plus, what about that last comment? That's not very loving, is it?" she claimed. "Why would they be so obvious about it if they were actually trying to hide it?" Hagakure asked, confused. Uraraka squinted, thinking. Maybe they're not hiding it. Momo shrugged, ignoring Ida's pointed mutters of violating their class's privacy by continuing this conversation. What, were they gonna go stand on the desks in class and announce it? Has anyone actually asked Bakugou or Midoriya if any of them are dating anyone? Wouldn't that clear things up a bit? Everybody looked at her in quiet contentment, eyes wide and mouths open. It was very obvious that no, that idea had not occurred to anyone as of yet. Momo rolled her eyes in exasperation. "Future greatest heroes, my ass," she muttered. Notes. Somebody. So, like, are you in a relationship? Bakugo. The thing I'm committed to is the fucking grind, dipshit. Later on. He literally admitted it, but also he's given Izuku a new nickname. For some reason, he's calling him the Grind. Oh, that's so cute because of how hard Mido works. Those two are just such a sweet couple.